Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Boring Enterprise Nerds Show and Tell video series. We have, as usual, the host, myself, Elena Perfileva, and my partner, Paul Moderman today. And we have really exciting guest all the way from Switzerland. Joining us today is Daniel Leal from Connective. So Daniel, please tell us a few words about yourself. How did you start? How did you start with SAP, and what do you do currently?
Yes, thank you for having me, Helena. Thank you for the introduction as well. It's a pleasure to be here. From my side, my background is really on the data engineering and reporting side. My background, I come from a computer science master's, and so I really got into the application side of data. I really liked, where data and kind of business and applications really hit the road, where they really meet. And it just happened that as I joined Connective, Connective is has been around for a few decades, and they're traditionally an SAP consulting company, but they've transitioned more now into cloud and data. And it happens that like a lot of the projects and a lot of the business solutions that are required right now are kind of in that middle ground where it's either a reporting solution, and that's how I got into SAC. So once you're already kind of the company's a bit more mature, or you're in the data integration, data engineering side where you have to get the data to a place where SAC is a viable solution or any
Mm.
other business
Mm,
intelligence solution. So that's kind of the part of the value chain that I've really kind of focused on in that
awesome.
respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So along Daniel's expertise today, our subject will mostly be SAP Analytics Cloud product. I know Paul might have a few words to say about the analytics subject. I don't work with analytics myself personally, so I'm really looking forward to see what Daniel shares today. But I have to say that recently there has been some kind of explosion of different options and solutions in the analytics space from SAP. I'm sure everyone heard about Databricks and what was that strangely named,
BDC,
yeah,
Business
Yeah.
Data
BDC,
Cloud.
yeah,
Data on
Business
cloud.
Data
Yeah.
Cloud,
Yeah.
and what's
Yeah. Yeah.
not. So it's really uh, fast evolving space these days. So really interesting subject. Like, looking forward to it. So Daniel, why don't you just kind of give us an overview of SAP Analytics Cloud or SAC, and would be great. Yeah, I think you have a short demo for us today. I think it would be awesome to see it in action. So yeah,
Absolutely.
please go
I'll
ahead.
jump straight into it. I have a quick presentation just to give an overview
Beautiful.
of SAC, and then go directly into it. I have a little showcase. Please, on my side, also feel free to interrupt me at any point. I think the idea is really to be a bit. Let me see. If I can yes, to be a bit more. Natural. If you have any questions, any
Yeah.
points, I may have missed
Yeah.
something or something, please don't hesitate to ask me anything.
Oh, we won't.
Okay. Okay, great. All right. So just to kind of quickly introduce again, I think already a bit of introduction myself. The team, like, this is Connective. We're boutique consulting here in Switzerland, and we've been around for 27 years, traditionally SAP consulting, and now we've pivoted more to cloud and data because that's where the industry is going as well, and I think there's a lot of exciting opportunities there. And we've done over 50 successful projects, and some of the big names here in Switzerland have been or are currently clients of ours. So we're very established here.
Mm.
Switzerland,
Yeah.
and we're expanding in the US and all these other things. But yeah. And
Awesome.
so just to kind of jump
So
directly into
sorry,
it.
sorry to add
Yeah, yeah.
27 years. That's really impressive. I mean, just think about it. What passed
Yeah.
all this time in technology? It's yeah. I mean, you guys must have like
Yeah,
lots
it's
of lots of
Yeah,
lots of things.
it
were there even computers 27 years ago? I don't, how does that work? No,
yeah,
I'm
that's
kidding.
I don't know when it was, but also one of our the founder, Christian of the company, he was also one of the first people to have internet connection in Switzerland. So he's a
Oh,
Wow.
really?
tech. He loves technology through and through. And he was telling us a story once. He had to go, I think, to ETH, one of the big universities here,
Hmm.
to get access and everything like that. So he loves technology. So he's been in the game since yeah,
Awesome.
since the
Wow.
Awesome.
beginning.
Sorry. Yeah,
Wow.
really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Fascinating history.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, perfect. And then so let me jump directly into SAC then. So SAC, what is it fundamentally? It's a business intelligence solution. So it's very similar to dashboarding solutions like Tableau, Power BI. Those are the main competitors that I can think of off the top of my head. Yeah, so it's business intelligence. But on top of that, two of the kind of additional features that SAP threw in with the software are predictive analytics. So that's basically you can do some machine learning a little bit. So any like forecasting time series, some classification. So it has some tooling for that.
Mhm.
And enterprise planning, which is it's built into it. It's a different license, but built into it. Basically, at a technical level, what that means is that you can write data back to the system. Usually, BI solutions are not designed for that. I mean, you can make them do that, but that's not what they're designed for. So SAC is really special in that case. You can use it for many multiple use cases, but the one they were thinking of this write back specifically is for planning. So you can write, usually, a company gets their actuals, financials from their SAP system, and then they want to do a planning run back to SAC. So they really kind of SAP had that use case really in mind. That's one where it really stands out. And to
So
give you an idea,
wait,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. No, no, please.
I see a term on here, augmented
Mm.
analytics. Can you tell me what that means?
Augmented analytics on my side, it's really dashboarding. I think
Dashboarding.
for me,
Okay.
it's just basically all the functionalities of building a dashboard. As we'll see when I build it up, it's, when you build up, for example, a table and you can take, maybe you have data from, let's say, 2020 and 2021.
Mhm.
For me, for what I've seen the augmented analytics is that you're able to, within like a few clicks, take the percent difference, have a nice little diagram on it. And like, so basically the whole augmented, it's not just a table, because at a table you can get in Excel,
Mhm.
but it's the augmented side where you can do the difference. You can do a little chart on it, and then straight away you can build a different chart on the side. So the
Mhm.
augmented, at least from what I've seen, is and from what I read, it's really on the interaction side, how interactive the data is, and the
Okay.
usability of it as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it looks like very
No
nice
question.
potential buzzword. You should like copyright it or something. Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't heard this specific word combination before. It sounds exciting. I mean,
Yeah.
Yes,
awesome.
but I think the one thing, because I've also seen other SAP solutions, the one thing I think SAC is one of their more mature ones. And
Mm.
so that's why I think it has to some extent delivered on the usability. And we'll see through the use cases and all these things. But at least, again, I'm relatively new to it. It's been in the industry approximately 5 years. It's, compared to what I've seen in the GUI side and ERP, SAC, it's really meant to be much more usable,
Mhm.
much more user
Mhm.
friendly,
Yeah.
much more. Yeah, it's like it's a pleasure to see. That's really and that's kind of what SAP, at least from the financial perspective, what they're really going for. They want it's that seeing your financial data is a pleasure to see. It's not just an Excel table, but it's also a bit nicer. Stuff with that.
Yeah. I mean,
But yes,
it's
and
really hard to
the,
do worse than SAP
Yeah.
GUI.
Set the bar low, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only way is up from there. Awesome.
yes, and so here basically to get into it, the SAC basically comes, of course, it's a very elaborate solution. There's many different features to it, but I think to kind of give you a good overview, it has two basic functionalities: the story builder and the model builder. The story builder here on here here on the top right, that is where you build your front end. So that's where you build the actual report. That's where most of the aesthetic things, that's
Mhm.
where you call the data from. That's where you tell SAC how to show you the data, and then any styling, bold lines here, the type of graph, etc. For the front end, and the model builder, that is what we consider, the back end where the data modeling happens. So this is where you store the data. SAC can store data. So this is where you store data, or where you set up the connection to your source system, whether it be, your SAP ERP or an SQL database, et cetera, et cetera. So, that's the kind of the logic that permeates throughout the whole SAC workflow. And then to kind of then give you some of the key features of SAC, then again, business intelligence, that's very similar to dashboard reporting, the augmented analytics that we talked about. And additionally, in the last few months, in the last 1 or 2 quarters, they've added also AI solutions. There's a new solution, just ask, Smart
Mhm.
Assist, where you have, they're trying to make it kind of a chat interface for your data. I've tested it out. It's a nice addition. I haven't used it in production. I haven't seen it in production yet. It's relatively new. It also you need to kind of the data has to be very clean in order for it to understand. But it's kind of moving in that direction. Enterprise planning, again, like I said, being able to write back data, that's one of the things that SAC is really special at. And again, being an SAP product from a kind of a software feature side that I've seen that's very, very valuable to customers is just that it's in the SAP ecosystem. The integration to SAP databases is very seamless. So that's the one also software feature that I think is very valuable from an SAC side
Mm.
as well. So if you're already in SAP, because those Power BI and stuff, they're comparable in terms of business intelligence functionality, but the connections and the higher and every other things like that. And then so, just to kind of give you an idea of where it shines, why it's unique, because this is one of the questions I've always often be asked, why
Mhm.
SAC over Power BI or Tableau or something. Um, SAC in particular, again, integrations. When it comes to SAP data sources, it's the best one in terms of, it carries one of the small things, but that's very powerful for you, for enterprise users, is the security. You have the security access roles already set up in your ERP system. It will carry over from that. All these things which are very convenient and to kind of maintain and to develop. Yeah.
This SAP data sources and SAP integration, it's specifically like getting SAP stuff into other things is like this is why I see SAC as like it makes sense as a product from a lot of directions, right? But like
Mm,
you could build a whole career, and many people do build a whole career doing nothing but
mm.
like shoveling this SAP data out of SAP into something
Yeah,
else,
the
right?
integrations,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Absolutely. And that's one of the ones that's very special. And that's also what you were saying earlier, Elena, that a lot of these products, DataSphere is meant to be kind of an even kind of a middleware between your
Mhm.
data sources and SAP and SAC, and it would give you, for example, additional SQL functionalities, additional connectors, and all these things. So they know that the integrations is one of the key features there that I've
Mm.
seen. That's why SAC as compared to other ones. The second one, and this is one's from experience, is hierarchies. I mean, it may sound a bit technical, it may sound a bit dull, but you'd be surprised. SAP data is very complex, especially some financial data can
yeah.
be extremely nested. You can have,
Yeah.
parent-child hierarchies that are very deep, or even, level-based hierarchies. Hierarchies is, it's the name of the game, or it's one of the key features of SAP of relational databases, specifically the ones in SAP. So hierarchies is, SAC can handle all types of hierarchies. I've seen it do some very, very elaborate hierarchies. And that is a feature that other BI solutions have do not have don't have very strong hierarchy functionalities.
Mm.
I've seen most of them do like a simple parent-child hierarchy with like one level or
Mm.
like a one level-based hierarchy. So that is one of those key features that I have come across time and time again that the users love because they're coming from, I don't want to say names, but coming from other BI solutions where if they want to do a hierarchy, then they have to do some fancy backend to kind of trick the system into understanding that
Mm.
this one belongs to this one and da da da,
Mm.
and then settling in this. And that's one of the things, like for example today for the showcase I'll build the hierarchy that's I think 3 or 4 levels if I remember correctly, just to show kind of how it works. And yes, I think that's one of also the key, and especially for financial data when you have accounts within
Yeah,
accounts within accounts.
Yeah.
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 Yes, that is one of the killer features that I have seen SAC stand out. Yeah, so that's on the specialty side there, and that's very, I think, particular to SAP, the structure that SAP data usually comes in.
And
Yeah.
I just want to
Yeah.
stress out, it's not just about analytics. I think complexity of SAP data models, it kind of touches every work we do in SAP space, even for
Mm.
developers or for people who try to integrate SAP with other systems. Because how many times you see questions, how do I get data from this SAP table? And
Mm.
SAP table is not gonna get you anything pretty much if you're talking
Mm.
about just one table, because there's a whole the whole bunch of tables at least that all
Exactly.
relate, and those
Yeah.
relationships, that's a super duper important part.
Yeah,
So
it's super,
definitely,
and that's also like the what gives that extra from a usability perspective. I
yeah,
had a really good professor in university about that really grilled this into us. Usually the X factor in software is usually usability, and
yeah,
that's one of those things where it's if you can get because you can get the joints correct, and then even
yeah,
then exposing the data, and then still you still don't have the hierarchies there. All these things that just built up on top of each other. And I've had it multiple times now, the experience. Usually with that's why I wanted to do the financial report today, because where they see the financial report and it's like, okay, they're already kind of cautious, like, okay, we have like 2 or 3 accounts inside this other account and that. They're already kind of, what are we gonna do? How's it gonna work? And then suddenly you're like, oh, you just, this is a
Yeah.
child of this and this child of that, and then you did it in half an hour, 1 hour, and then they're impressed, because
Yeah.
and it's again, I haven't seen it in other BI solutions. I think
Mm.
that's why I wanted to really bring it up. I think in that respect, it does very well.
Awesome.
Yeah, it has other, of course, shortcomings, but I think hierarchy is very, very powerful. Yes, and then the third point, which I already kind of mentioned before, is planning. Today we're not going to talk too much about planning. We can do that if you, of course, for a following one, but that's one where I think it's very unique. No other business solution BI's tool kind of offers planning out of the box. You can kind of make it plan to some extent, but SAC is really designed for planning, and they have a license just for that, and you can write back data, and yeah. That's really special in that respect. All right, then let me jump. Any other thoughts or questions? Any other?
Let's go.
You wrote.
I like when people like click around. Let's go. I love this.
Let's go. All
I
right, perfect.
thank you by the way for doing it. The click around
Yeah.
I love the click
Yeah.
arounds.
Okay, perfect. My pleasure. So this is our SAC 10 Aircon Active. Just to give you a bit of an overview, in SAC, you have your home, you have these are the main features, your stories, that's what they call dashboards in SAC.
Mm-hmm.
And there's analytics applications. These are kind of like the stories, are complicated stories, data analyzers, some, if you want to do quick analysis, this is where you handle your data sets or models. And then these data action allocations, these are more for planning. But today we're just going to go, I'll show you basically the interface is very much like a folder structure. So I'm already inside the folder for today, for example, SEC for financial planning.
Mm-hmm.
And here I have a template for the story, which I'll use afterwards. But the way I usually start is always with a model. So here we'll add model. And for usually, of course, you want to go from there's an update. You can connect directly to an SAP to a data source. For today's showcase, I have an Excel file that I prepared. So local model, locally based model. Here you can select the local model, then it'll ask us to pick the Excel file. Here we have an income statement transactions. Open this. And because it's multiple sheets, then I will go from the flat data. That's kind of the transaction data.
Mm-hmm.
You can pick whichever one you like. And of course, here the headers is the first one. So you can take those. And then while it loads up, because it may take a few seconds, I can show you kind of how the data looks. I've seen the data come in many, many different fashions. This is the one that I've seen most often, especially when it comes to income statements. So you have some sort of transaction. This is all test data for a kind of a test manufacturing company, like a big manufacturing company, but it's kind of one that we like to use for internal testing and for doing some developments. And basically the idea is you have the periods, you have the account, what account do they is being booked, the description for the account, and a value. It's very simple. And the hierarchy I'll use later is how the accounts are related. And usually these accounts can be quite deep. So once the model's been loaded, you have here your the first kind of intro view. One of the first things that you want to do is in SAC, there's kind of 2 different types of variables. There's a measure, which is basically for numeric variables. Here's where, for example, the value of the entry. And there's dimensions, which is where you hold everything else. Basically, that's where you have like dates, accounts, et cetera, et cetera. Multiple ones. So the first thing I usually do is just to make sure, okay, I quickly scroll, everything looks good, nothing weird. Sometimes you have to be careful with, if some text becomes, gets a weird jumbled or something because of some of your special characters. Everything looks good off the top. But then now we start to basically change the variable types. Because, for example, here, period, this is a date. Right now, it's a generic dimension. In order to get the most out of SAC, we want to kind of tell it as much as we can about the data. So here we go on date. And it automatically kind of says, okay, this is quarterly data. So I can see that this is the formatting.
Yeah.
Yes. It has this little I have to say, SEC has some things where it can improve here and there, but again, I think it's been around for almost 10 years. There used to be another product before. So they have kind of gotten some of these details
The little
fine-tuned.
ergonomic things, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones that yeah.
So I'm just gonna say, it's gonna be like a chore to translate that format into actual year and some kind of date period. But this is great. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And so you have like because technically there's a hierarchy behind it, and that's already basically taken care of for you.
Mm.
And then the main thing here, the accounts. So here, because we're working with financial data, and SAC is really designed for financial data. You can use it for any other data source, but financial data is one of its main use cases. So you can create an actual, there's a dimension type called account.
Mm.
And here, it fixes the name. You take some member ID, so we'll just create it off the top. And what you'll see is that today we're going to keep it simple, but
Mhm.
a lot of the things that it knows you will want, it already kind of gives it to you. So if you go into the actual dimension where you see the kind of data into your dimension table, then you can actually write up formulas. Let's say, you want to calculate something that's the result of something else. Or for example, for like financial statements, we're not going to do it today because for example, assets and liabilities, depending on your convention, one is
Mhm.
positive, one is negative, etc. I just for this example, they're not negatives already there, but you can actually, hard code if it's like an asset or liability into this. There's many different ways to cut the cake in that respect. And yeah, so there's a lot of, ways to play around here with data. So in that respect, I think it's well functionally there. Let me save the model.
And I was just when you were showing account types, I'm like, and now we have like cryptic language like INC or something.
INC,
It's
yeah.
like, yes,
That's when it starts to,
that's also SAP for you.
yes, it's one of the things. And then also, for example, one of the things, this is just a quick kind of user example. Always save the model before you kind of change
Yeah,
the hierarchy. It's just
yeah.
a thing. For some reason, if I try to change the hierarchy now before saving the model, I can do certain things, but other things will break.
Mm.
So it's just from experience, before you start kind of setting up a hierarchy or anything like that, save it, and then you can start doing the changes.
Yeah.
And now I can, start deleting things. Usually, so for this example, it's highly manicured. So I already have the hierarchy right here set up so that it matches with exactly what SAC wants. Of course, usually this is part of, you'll have to sit down and kind of figure out, okay, this account
Mm.
goes within this, or if it's a product, this product goes within this. But once you figure it out, it's basically you can just copy paste it from Excel, like as you see here, paste it here, and then here we have the unassigned. I'll assign that to the root is the top of the account. So this is how I like to interact with it in terms of if I already have everything ready, if you just copy paste it, you see that they have unique identifiers in the hierarchy. But as a user, and also just to showcase, is it here in the, let me save it. There's a much more user-friendly way of looking at the whole hierarchy. So here's called hierarchy management. Here you can see
Mm.
it'll show you all your kind of accounts, and you can actually kind of see the hierarchy as a
Oh, that's
hierarchy.
cool.
Yeah, that's kind of nice from a user interface perspective, usability. I've seen a lot of users prefer this one, and like you can drag and drop things in here, so you can build the hierarchy like that. So,
Oh,
for
cool.
Oh,
example, again, yeah, like today I already had it set up because I already kind of did that. But
Mm.
if you're messing around, it's the first time, it's really very useful to just kind of do it like that in that respect. So I have to say that's one of the things that I really like. Again, and you already see here, I think it's 2 or 3 levels deep, and it goes deeper. So that's one of the things that I think it does really well. The hierarchy management.
Yeah.
This in other BI solutions would take either some custom programming or other functionalities as well.
yeah. This is one of those. This is one of those things too, where it's like if you're thinking about like AI and everything like that, this doesn't look all that impressive necessarily.
Mm,
But I was a developer in like a corporate accounting department for 3 or 4 years, what feels like a million years ago. They would
yeah,
have killed people to have this. There were
yeah,
specialty tools all over the place to kind of do things like this. They would have murdered people all over the place
yeah.
just to have this
They
drag
have.
and drop, create the hierarchy, zhuzh up my hierarchy. Like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and like a nice drag and drop. Like for me, it's the same because I mean, I came from when I was in university, it was already Python and all these things,
Mm,
and a hierarchy is a hierarchy. And then I suddenly came, and for me, like this is the technology that I started with,
mm,
So for me, it's like, oh, this
yeah.
is just how it is. And then I've some controllers or something that have been in the industry for 20, 30 years, and they tell me like, you have no idea how nice this is. And then they go and show me like this is what we had before,
Yeah.
and I'm like, whoa,
You're like,
you know,
whoa.
yeah,
And it's
it's
funny because in ABAP, even in classic development from back in the days, there is an option to present hierarchy display,
Mm,
but it just sucks. I mean,
Yeah.
from
mm,
both UI and
Yeah.
development standpoint. I
Yeah.
tried using
mm.
it because I saw it in a couple of standard reports. And I'm like, oh, this cool. No, looks cool. Why isn't this used widely? But when I dug into it, like, okay, now I see
Yeah.
why, because
Now I see why.
it's just awful to
It's
deal
just that,
with.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, definitely.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
so that's why also from my side, I really kind of drill home the usability point. It's your
Hmm.
usability, and again, SAC, it's like any tool. If you kind of, I mean, you gotta get the details right so that it's highly usable. But you can also, oopa, did I undo? No, it's here. The if you get the details wrong, then of course it doesn't work properly as
Yeah.
expected. So you really kind of got to focus a little bit of the details to make sure the hierarchies are correct, to make sure the
Mm,
formatting is correct, and all these
sure.
things. But the kind of, I think the foundation is there. The foundation is there to get it right. Okay, so I think for now that is all the kind of processing I want to do. I basically, just to kind of recap, make sure the dates are correctly formatted and that the system knows that this is a date variable, and then the system knows an account and it knows the hierarchy. Again, in a real world scenario, you probably have much more cleaning and things to do, but for this case, that's enough to show, and especially to show you those kind of functionalities. Then once it's done, again, just make sure save. It's one of the main things here. Okay, no changes, so it's good. Now, then the second step. So now we did kind of the back end, we did all the data modeling, prepared the
Mhm.
data, to kind of, so we can start now actually building visualizations on top of the data. So actually, this is where, what's the user gonna use it for, depending on the use case, what do they want to see about the data, how they want to analyze it. For this case, usually you would start from an empty story. And actually, just for today, I'll show you, if you go to the story page, again, it goes to the story. And you can have different formats. I usually go for responsive because this one already comes, and you get the optimized one because that's the newest kind of version of
Hmm.
it. It comes with little boxes, so you can drag and drop things, and everything is put no model for now. And everything is already, in terms, again, from a user perspective, you can kind of trust that if you use it in a laptop, it's going to look all right. If you use it in a mobile, if you for some reason you want to, it's going to look all right. So
Mhm.
always, responsive. But for today, I already have one set up, the template, so that it looks a bit nicer. You have just, on the left, some branding. You can, however you like. And
Mm.
then on the top, you have a title. Because today we're doing an income statement. It's just a table. We're not going to do anything
Mm,
very fancy.
sure.
And yeah, so you can go into edit. And so to start off, basically, I think the model's already connected, but I can show you here. No, actually good. So you go to the tools. Here, you can add your model. And do you want to show that clear model? And it will let you pick it from your workspace. So you see here, it's like the workspace is very much like a file structure
Hmm.
that people are comfortable with. And then here, pick the one you want. And then now the front end, you can actually connect multiple models if you want, but for this one, we're just doing one.
Mm.
And now the front end knows, okay, that's where I'm getting the data from.
Right.
So to begin, you're going to do just a table. So you click here, they give you graphs. We'll do a graph afterwards on the table. And here on the right, then you will get, all the functionality of what do you want to see in this table.
Mm.
For this example, we want to, here you have to clean this out a little bit. Sometimes it gets filters and stuff. You have to just usually better to just close it and kind of do it yourself. On the rows, I want the accounts for this example. I'm still using them here. Let me take them off there. So I want to see the accounts. So kind of how you're used to seeing an income statement.
Mm.
And on the columns, so at the top, I want to see the values. And here we have what we call the measures. I want to see value to be working. And additionally, I want period. So what you get is that you get to see the value by here, the data goes down to quarters. So you can see it quarterly, you can see it yearly, or you can see all of it aggregated. So let me show you how that actually works. So here, we'll just make it bigger. And then you can
287
bring,
million. You put Yelena's salary on there right away.
yeah. I had to, underplay it a little, you know what I mean? But but here you see kind
In
of straight
Japanese
away.
yen, maybe.
But here you see like the hierarchy here,
Mm.
the value, I mean, you're not going to see all of them. You're going to want to see, of course, more granularly. But you see 2019, 2020, 2021. But of course,
Mm,
then if you click again, you have
yep.
the quarters straight away. That's why you wanted to have like the date be formatting as a date so that the system knew, okay, this is the hierarchy of time that I want to use. So it'll break down everything for you. Again, this is another feature that users have usually really liked because there's something that usually you had to do by hand more or less before. Now it comes out of the box if you pre-process it. And then you can break it up again. And then just to show you here, then net profit, underneath net profit, there's taxes, earnings before taxes. Also the numbers, maybe on the account structure. The data, it's really kind of toy data. It's not meant to be super, correct and all these things. So, take it with a grain of salt, but it's just to kind of showcase the functionality there. So here you see, I just click down the hierarchy and you can kind of go in depth as much as you want, or you can kind of break up higher and it'll go back to normal. Then one of the things show you is also that I like to do as well. So here on the right, you have the builder. So this is where you kind of see what's on DAX, what data is actually shown. But then there is the kind of the styling, how to make it look nice. And one of the things, for example, for this one, they give you a really nice styling default template for report styling. So yeah, no problem. And then basically it already looks like a nice report out of the box with, with some highlighted rows so that it's easier to read in and out of the box kind of things. Also, just from a styling perspective, I don't need, for example, these titles. I don't really need, so you can.
Just
So
gonna
you're right.
ask, like, what's the deal with the weird title seems to be added by default?
the titles are just the name of the model, and they do it kind of out of security, so that or out of so that you know where the data is coming from. But once you set up, you don't need that. If you click here on the right, you have a lot of different ways to different functionalities you can do with the table. For this one, we can just say, I don't want to. I don't need to see the title. I need to see the subtitle. I don't need to see the details. I just want it clean. And then it'll give you a really nice kind of clean interface. And then here, you can actually see, then have a nice breakdown of everything in a single page. And then here, this is text, so I can do the income statement. And yes, and then that's kind of, then you have an income statement, basically. Let me show you. Let me save it. Also, one thing, SAC, always save. It's happened many tiers. Save, it doesn't auto-save sometimes, so always save, always be extra careful.
Nice. Like in development, commit often.
Yes, always, it happens. And then once you're done with adding, you can go to the view. It'll give you a nice, bit more nicer. So this is kind of how the user would see it if they go directly into the page. So you see so much more user-friendly. You can scroll down, up. This is just a pure table. And also also another thing to show, then this is a table. You can also kind of have a graph. One of the graph. Oh, let me delete.
Yeah, I was going to ask about graphs. There we go.
Yeah. So you click on this one. It has the graphs. Same setup. On the right, you have the builder for like the technical side, what data you want to show, and you have the styling for colors and fonts and all that stuff. And here for this one, let's say usually income statements you want to have some ratio. So you would do here. Add a measure or add an account here, and you want to do it from a custom calculation. And here, as you see, kind of this is already getting a bit deeper into the system where you actually kind of create, you want to calculate your own ratios. You want to see, taxes, how much, what's your tax over your net profit, for example. And so you have, because we set everything up as accounts, you do like a little open bracket, and then you already have all your accounts here. So here, for example, I want to see, taxes divided by net profit, and that's it. And let me just call it, tax over profit, give it a name. Then I should be able to see it here. See here. I have to here for the measure, so it knows where it's getting the, what the numeric data is coming from, just to get the value. Here it gives me like this table, which I don't, it doesn't do anything for me. But I know for this one, there's like these are all the different types of graphs that you can do. For this one, I do a numeric point. So basically, I want the point very nice, big. Then I can format it here on right here. I can format the actual calculation, so I know from default that I don't want to use the underlying measure. I want it to be a percent. and then it gives me the full percent. Um, what I like to do, for example, is I mean, this is one of the templates, a simpler template, but you can kind of drag it here. Oop,
Oh,
whoops.
like here's the one, guys. Look at this one kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the one, the big one.
Yeah.
It's just like a KPI
Yeah.
thing.
Mm,
You can change the color of it. You can do, I can show you, and you see as soon as I moved it, it kind of shrank straight
mm,
away. You can make it, you can add a threshold. So you can do it another time, but basically, if it's over a certain value, then it should show a different color. If
mm.
it's under a certain value, it should be green, etc. You can do all these kind of little functionalities. And again, I also like to style it for this case. We don't need to see everything. So I can go here to show hide and I don't need to see the chart title, for example, et cetera, et cetera. And yes, and so that's one of the kind of the basic functionalities to showcase that I want to kind of show today, how to build you know, how to quickly build a financial statement and then just some of the calculations that can be built. But again, this is the foundation for many things. On top of this, then you can build,
Yeah.
graphs, you can build time
Mm.
series graphs, quick, I can go here, put another graph, and let's say I want to just show net profit and I want to show value. And then let's say we want to do a line. And, I think for this one on the y-axis, yes, we add a dimension. We're going to do it by time, for example. So yeah, so here you can see, because the period is a hierarchy, so you can get it at the yearly level. That's kind of, it gives you the option. That's level 2 in this case. Then level 3 would be at the quarterly level,
Mm.
and you can see it. That's just to show you kind of where you can go with it.
Mm,
But yeah,
that's
yeah,
cool.
I think that's it on my
So
side. Yeah.
so Daniel, what would you say is people's biggest like I don't want to say problem, but like what is
Mm.
the thing that what is something that people find challenging to get over the
Mm.
hump in SAC? Like what do they need to sort of get in their heads to go from I don't know what this is to like, okay, I'm on track now. I'm cruising, right?
Yes, the modeler. I think so. For example, I
Modeler.
think let me know what you think. But for me, this was quite intuitive from the beginning, and from what I've seen other users, it's quite intuitive. Oh, you have like table. You kind of once you get that used to kind of clicking around, picking things, is intuitive. But the modeler, especially if you're coming from an Excel background where you're used to just clicking on the actual cell, doing
Mm.
things. This is a calculation here. This is different. Once you, like I showed you, once you go, for example, into the account, then you have a bit more of an Excel functionality where you can kind of
Mm,
click things and calculate things. But before you get there, you already have to set some things up. I've seen it, and also for me personally, that's what took me at the beginning to kind of get used to. I see my data here, and then I want to like click on it and do something to it, and it doesn't really, I can
mm,
transform data here, but that's not usually, you have to be careful with that. Or let's say, for example, what I showed you, the KPI, where you want to calculate something here in the modeler, you can go to calculations. Then you would have to create a new calculation, and then you create a formula here. It's the from again usability. They're just not
Mm.
used to that, and so it's like, hey, I just want to divide taxes by net profit. This should be kind of a simple a simple thing, but they're not used to it. And it was also for me, it's just a different way of doing things. So I think that's one of
Uh,
from a learning perspective, that's one of the big humps for SAC.
So, Daniel, quick questions in terms of calculations, because we saw
Mm.
before you can do some formulas in that kind of more of a front
Yeah,
end piece of
yeah,
it, and you can also do calculations here right in the model.
and
What
yeah.
would be your guidance? Like, what's a good idea to do in one place, but what
Mm.
really better idea to do in the model?
If it's something specific, if it's something that you're only going to use in that specific report,
Mm-hmm.
usually it's a better idea to do it at the report level. So like how I showed in the video,
Mm-hmm.
if it's, for example, sometimes you build like multiple reports of one
Mm-hmm.
data model, then it's a better idea to do it in
Oh,
the
okay,
calculation.
good.
That's generally the use case, because if you do it in the story, it doesn't save it to the model. So right now, the one I
Mm.
created only exists at the report level. It does not exist at the report
Mm.
level, at the model level here.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes,
So some models then can serve the same calculation to multiple reports.
yes, yeah, yeah,
So, okay, so let me flip my question on its head then. Like, what's the
yeah,
apart from the hierarchy, because that was cool from the standpoint of like
yes,
people who never had that tool before.
yeah.
What's one other thing, whether you showed it or not, that makes like the finance people or the business people go, yes, yes, this is the one. Give me this tool. Like, what's the thing that makes them say that?
I think it's usually just the aesthetics. That's why I
Mm,
think you'd be surprised, but I completely understand it because I was very fortunate to be the technology I kind of used and I kind of developed was already quite nice to look at. Usability is not such a now it's one of the priorities in software, and so I think the aesthetics of it. So when I show, I think yeah, discard the changes, turn it up. When I show a table that looks nice and discard this for now, but where it's like, oh, this is clean. It's not always, I mean, at least from how we try to kind of do it, is always try to be, our design has to be quite, focused, save it, quite focused,
always be
what's the
saving.
point, yes, always be saving, absolutely. And I've had many, many experiences where I did it. But yeah, it's quite to the point, quite nice. It's also like a bit of a breath of fresh air, because
Mm.
sometimes where they're seeing like you tell me they're already like, okay, what am I gonna see? Like, am I gonna understand it? Where is everything gonna be? And then suddenly like, okay, this is just like, I scroll, I see the thing, da da da. It's really it's very helpful in that respect.
Daniel,
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Actually, yeah.
No, please finish your thought.
Oh, sorry, just as well detail because I know Marvin, a colleague of mine, because I showed him this before. He was always like, why do you show? Be careful not to show all the decimal points because it doesn't make sense. So it's from a user perspective, and I can just quickly show you how it's done here on the styling. You click on it, and you're at the higher level, and you kind of say, decimal places 0, and it does,
Oh
because
yeah.
you're not gonna go five. This is just a toy data, kind of all these. But he's really really good at all these details and really the usability. So that's why I kind of wanted to. I just caught that.
Yeah.
But yes,
So, so
what was the question?
yeah,
Yeah.
follow-up question. So I'm curious,
Yeah.
how frequently do you see requests like, oh, this is like super cool, but how
Mhm.
do I like click and go to SAP from this? How do I see like some financial information? How do I
Yeah.
go to my like FB03 from this? Do you get
Yeah.
requests
Yeah.
like this? And if
Absolutely.
yes, what do you do then?
Absolutely. So for one client, that's actually a very good solution. One of the clients, it was not for not for financial data, it was for utilities data. But yeah, there, as far as I know, maybe there's a way to kind of embed a link
Mm-hmm.
so that you click it and opens your GUI or opens some online thing. Because we've done it the opposite way, where you're in the GUI
Mm-hmm.
or you're in some sort of launchpad and you click and it's just a hyperlink. This is
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally just hosted on a website. So you click, so you're going from like the GUI to SAC. I've seen a lot going from SAC to the GUI. There is, as far as I've seen, I haven't seen like a click and it opens it up for you
Mm-hmm.
directly. What we've done from a user perspective, like usability perspective, to make the user is, you have documentation built into the report.
Mm-hmm.
So you would scroll down. I can't show it right now, but like for example, you have a screenshot, basically saying,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, this comes from a specific transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see a mistake or you want to change something, or let's say something's missing and you want to go even deeper, then right here you would have like a documentation, a screenshot of like this is what the transaction that, if you want to see the data this way, this is the transaction, and just a quick description at the bottom. That's how it's done. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how we've solved it. They've really liked the solution because then they really feel that. And what's we're also with our solutions, we always try to empower the user,
Mm-hmm.
with because it's at the end of the day, it's their data and it's them to use. It's for them to use.
Mhm.
So it's always been how do we make them as comfortable as possible so that they will actually use it and they will actually, try things out, change things here and there, and providing that documentation, but not like technical documentation that's in a Word in some
Yeah.
SharePoint or something that they have to get, but like a technical documentation that's short, is to the point, right into the report has actually been a great solution. And they've liked it. Of course, you have to, because at the beginning, I remember we had the idea, we're like, putting, you just I'm sorry, putting documentation right beneath the report, it's gonna break the whole thing, like
Mm-hmm.
in terms of just the aesthetics and the usability. But they've actually really appreciated it. Of course, you have to be able to balance it. You don't want to overdo it. So usually for
Yeah.
us, it's like a single screenshot, 2 or 3 sentences. This is what the transaction is. This is where the data is coming from. If you want to check the transaction, check this,
Mm.
something like that. Yeah.
Mm.
And
Yes.
so question about the branding here. Is this
Mhm.
part of the theme or like a skin or something like that companies can just kind of
Yes.
apply to their whole
To the
solution?
whole, yes. You can
Right.
create a template. So
Mm.
basically, let me just I can show you directly from the stories. you could create a template and then save it. So for example, here we have some templates,
Mm-hmm.
some
Mm.
course I did at the beginning, some that come already out of the box. You can build your own. Usually, from my experience, I think, SAC, once you reach a certain level of maturity, maybe let's say off the top of my head, maybe once you have like 5 to 10 reports on SAC that are used and it has momentum inside the organization, it's a maturing solution, then I think it would be worth it to invest in a template and so that everything's kind of standardized. Of course, you always want to kind of have some sort of standards,
Yeah.
but usually SAC teams are quite centralized. And but before that, yeah, just kind of some things were for this example, and usually we try to keep it simple, straight to the point. I think less is more. And just to show you how it actually works, for this, it's nothing too crazy. It's basically a shape directly on the directly here. You have a shape, and you kind of have the dark color, and you can change the color of it directly here. Whatever fill color. Of course, you can make it, so it fits your corporate identity, et cetera, et cetera. You can change the color to red, and then you can put things on it, make it bigger. Like for example, here I have my name. We can drag things directly on it. It's not that big a deal there. And yeah, and again, you can make it as complicated as you want. You can also, like you said, you can also add pictures. So images, for example, like their company logo, this is an image. Here you have images, but yeah, very flexible. I think once you get into that's what getting into it, but once you get into details, I think there is quite a bit of functionality there to play around with.
Awesome.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other questions?
Not for me. This is cool. I really appreciate the show off.
Yeah, I also,
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah. Yeah, this was really neat and really helpful, Daniel. So yeah, thank you so much.
And I think also we'll have this basically the data on our website. We'll provide a blog post as well, kind of the step-by-step screenshots of the steps I did and the actual data itself. This is also just from internally when we were picking up SAC a few years ago. We always saw like cool demos, and then like, where's the Excel file, or where's it, like where's the data? Because you can click around, but if they're without any data, what's the point? And
there you go.
So we'll
That's
provide
helpful.
that. Absolutely, to help kind of help the community there to do the learnings. Yeah, but I think overall, like SAC, I've been quite impressed. It's again, later we can go on if you like following thing. Once you get into the connections, this is where you handle how you actually connect to the systems, to the backend systems. That's where, of course, a lot of the complexity starts to kick in, and that's where you have to handle. SAC has its it's different things that it likes to do in certain ways, and all these things. But apart from that, it's SAC more the connections we have to an S/4HANA database. But apart from that, it is very I think it has been very user friendly on the front end side. I think for building reports, I think it's doing a pretty good job.
Awesome.
Cool.
So before we go, just I want to make sure I put in two very important questions. So first, for the SAP customers who are thinking getting some kind of SAC based solution, what would be very important things to keep in mind for them from your experience?
Basically have a good idea, at least probably like a list of the reports that you would like, 5 or 10 of those, because there's like kind of some of the features we discussed today. If you have a list, I always like to go like kind of reverse engineer from the use case. So if you have a list and you see the data, a lot of hierarchies, financial data, and the data is in an SAP system, SAC is probably your best solution if you can afford it, and it's like if it fits your whole operation. I think sometimes there's certain company sizes where it's better to have only one business intelligence solution. There's certain companies that having 2 or 3 is enough because they're so big. That's one of the cases that I've seen. Some companies that are like multi-billion-dollar companies, and they're like, oh, we only want to have one. It's like I agree that it's good to be kind of streamlined, but when you're that big and you have so many data sources, I think it's all right to have multiple. So I think kind of have your report list and kind of reverse engineer from there. And for SAC, I can say that, if it is coming from an SAP system, or a lot of data is coming from an SAP system, and if it's highly, structured, like with hierarchies and very other kind of particular SAP structures, then SAC is probably a good solution for that. I'm not saying that the other ones aren't, but I think SAC is kind of makes it just that much easier And then where SAC, and then where the other ones are probably better is like, for example, Power BI, if a lot of your things are on SQL database hosted on
Yeah.
Azure, then, Power BI and Power BI is already kind of included with your licenses and you can upgrade some of the licenses. Then it's
Yeah.
probably a bit smoother to go with Power BI,
Yeah.
something like that. And yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's
That
what comes
makes
to mind.
sense. And second question, so for consultants, SAP consultants who are thinking about getting in to learn more about SAP Analytics Cloud, what would you suggest? What would be your go-to resource for learning here?
I think first of all, getting a trial account. I don't off the top of my head how it would work, but if you go to Google and SAP Analytics Cloud and sign up, SAP gives you a free account for I think 30 days, if I'm not mistaken, and you can always I think extend it. So that will give you basically a tenant like this to mess around with. I think that's fundamental. Start there. And then maybe as a little plug, when we back years ago, I don't know if it's still good, but there's a Udemy course and I can put it in the blog post. I can put it also at the bottom because that one helped a lot on my side to kind of get to kind of learn the basics, learn the story and all these things. But I think SAC is something that you really learn, by having a use case. You have a problem, or you have some data that you want to kind of that you want to address, and then you also have some yeah, and then you have like some need, and so you kind of start clicking around, and that's
Yeah.
really when you get into the depths of it. But there's a really good Udemy course I put on I forgot the name. I forgot. It's been so many years that I forgot off the top of my head. But that was very helpful.
Yeah.
And then just
Well,
getting an account, and then reach out to us. We're always here to help as well. I mean, our account information is there as well.
yeah, I think, yeah,
Yeah.
and just relying on community. And but it's a great point. Just go in and dig into it because many people miss that. They're like, oh, well, what book do I read? Bro,
Yeah.
just start.
Just
Just
play
speed
around
it
with it,
up.
and
So
Yeah.
exactly.
yeah, because I think from what I say, I've heard that other SAP products that have that problem where getting just access to the product is a
Yeah.
bit of a headache. SAC is a bit different in that respect. You have to go to the website and just give them some information, and they'll give you a trial. So in that respect, of course you're not going to be able to do any fancy connections to
Yeah.
a database, maybe to SQL or something, but you're not going to have like a production system
Yeah.
behind it. But again, like for learning, I would do like we did today, Excel. Just there is like once you get to the modeling side, it looks the same more or less.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah,
So yeah, so thank you again so much, Daniel, for
my
joining us
pleasure.
today and
Yeah.
showing and telling about SAP Analytics Cloud. Any closing remarks, Daniel, or anyone? Any things to promote? Rude comments,
Oh,
etc.
I mean, no, I think on my side, thank you very much, Elena, for having me. It's a pleasure, and I think you're also building, and also Paul, you're building an exceptional community. I mean,
Oh,
I
thank
kind
you.
of discovered you, Elena, at the ASUG event, and it's been a pleasure, and it's really nice to be part of the community. Of course, to kind of contribute a little bit, and yes, and then on our side, Connective, we're here to help. We're really, I told you before, we're specialized, really focus on the customer, and of course on the community. And
Yeah.
so, feel free to reach out to us with any questions, anything we can help. And like I said, everything will be in the blog. So you should basically, if you get a test in it, you should be able to basically replicate this whole dashboard for yourself. And I think you'll learn something valuable
Awesome.
from that.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Beautiful.
Daniel. So that's all for today, folks. And yeah, please like and subscribe and follow us and connect to Daniel. Follow him on social media. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
All right. Thank you.